The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are coming to you from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're so thrilled to be here with you on this Monday morning, and we're excited that we believe that we have the fabulous Bonnie Yates joining us again today. And we've got another great guest that's coming up for you, Amy Gravino, who's going to be talking with us. She's an autism consultant and she's the founder of an organization called A.S.C.O.T, and so she's going to talk with us about that. So I want to remind you that the entire show today is meant to be interactive. We'd love to hear from you, your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, your concerns. There are lots of ways for you to interact with us, and Traven's going to show you some of those ways while I remind you about our homepage, which is autism-live.com. And when you go there, lots of videos to watch and lots of categories. You can search them by category. You can search them by a name. You can search them by a question. There are lots of different ways to do that. You can chat with us. On the bottom, there's a chat button. It says chat, and if you click it, it opens up a little window, and you can type there and send that off to us, and it shows up here on my screen, and that's a wonderful thing. But you can also interact with us via YouTube and Facebook and all the other places that we are available. We love, love, love to hear from you. I do like to remind you that we have lots of experts that are on the show, and in fact, we're gonna have some great experts on the show today. I'm not one of them. Like, we really don't want to mince words about that. I am a really proud mom. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he's a miracle now and doing so well. And that is not because I was a good mom. That's because I lucked out and got the very best of therapy and treatment from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And that's part of why I am so adamant now about making sure that you guys get information and inspiration to help you on this journey, and to not feel as though you don't have options and you don't have resources, because maybe you don't have enough. Let's be very clear about that. But there are things out there and there are people out there who are working to help you on a daily basis. And when I say you, I'm talking about the autism community. And that includes, of course, the individuals that are on the autism spectrum, of course, but also their parents, their teachers, the people who work with them, their spouses, their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their cousins, right? I include all of those people in the autism community because I think we all need to be in this together. We all have something different that we need, and we're going to see things from a very different perspective, absolutely. And we are not ever going to agree on everything. We're just not going to. And that makes sense to me. Doesn't it make sense to you too? But we do agree that individuals with autism need to be treated with dignity, that they have rights, and that they should be given the supports and services to help them to be able to achieve everything that they find meaningful in their life. Not the thing that we find meaningful, but what they find meaningful. So I think we're all in agreement on that. And I do like to say, let's hold hands, let's get there together. Si se puede, right? So having said all of that, we like to start Mondays with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani nani are these experts talking about? Why are they using these terms? Why are they putting us through this, right? But we need to know, because it's like what stands between us and the progress a lot of the time. So, but sometimes it costs you money to ask in the real time and say, well, I'm sorry, what? It certainly costs you time. I'm sorry, what are you saying? And what does that mean? And what ramifications does that have for my child or for me, right? That all sucks time. So we try to cover these terms, and first we give you an actual definition. And I like to make fun of the actual definitions because I roll that way. And then we give you a working definition, which often makes the experts scratch their heads and be like, what? But we try to give you some way to begin to understand whatever this thing is in your life and why it's meaningful to you and why you should take the time and energy to learn this term, right? How it's going to save you time and money, right? So that's what we do. That's what we're about here. And look, you can see today's jargon term today, the lovely acronym FAPE. And you will hear people say that, FAPE. And FAPE stands for, it's FAPE, so it stands for Free Appropriate Public Education. There it is, Free Appropriate Public Education, a term frequently referred to in IEPs. So that is what the actual definition is, but let's move on to the working definition, because there's not a whole lot to be made fun of. You know, I mean, like, we understand these words, right? Free, appropriate, public education. Like, this sort of, it's like, okay, but I don't really know what that translates to. So our working definition for FAPE, because this is the baseline of what you need to know, it's what your child is legally entitled to in the United States. Okay, so let's back it up for a little history lesson here, although I got to get myself a tissue and I'm out of tissues. Okay, so that's how that works. Okay, so there was a period of time in the United States when if you had a child who was special needs and you know, let's say that your child was in a wheelchair, or let's say that your child had an intellectual disability, or let's say that you were one in the 10,000 people who had a child with autism. And it became time to take your child to school, and maybe you brought your child over to the school, or maybe you didn't because you knew that you wouldn't be welcome there. But if you did bring your child over to the school, they would look at you and go, what are you doing here? We don't have a ramp. We don't have a program. We have teachers here and we don't know how to deal with your child. And so you would take your child home and your child would sit there and look out the window and watch all the other kids go to school. And you would have to come up with something on your own to work out, was your child going to be educated? And some folks never were. That's how it was. And it's not the too distant past. We're talking about in my lifetime, that the kids that I would have gone to school with to first and second grade, we're talking about those kids. And then some things changed. You know, not to take it to a political place, but one of the people that was involved in changing that was Hillary Clinton. That was one of the things that got talked about in the campaign a lot, because she was one of the people who went door to door and found these kids and said, why aren't they in school? And a whole lot of people got together, and there were several different things that were passed, several different laws that were passed. There's the Americans with Disabilities Act, and then there is IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. There was a time, let me just tell you, most of the time when my child was going through his early intervention, it took me forever to learn, oh, if I just spell out IDEA, then I have IDEA, okay, but it took me forever to know what it stood for, right? You don't need to know what it stands for. You just need to know it's the law of the land, and that these two laws together, IDEA and ADA, provide for your child to get a free, appropriate public education. In IDEA, there is language that says that all children are entitled to a free, appropriate public education. It is the base on which you stand to say, no, you're going to have to find a way to educate my child. So let's tear this down a little bit. It's got to be free. Okay. We all know what free means, right? Here's the dicey word, appropriate. And we're still fighting about that. Last year, year before last year, it was last year that the Supreme Court had a new ruling about special education and said, because the Ninth Court had said that all the school had to do was, the Latin term was de minimis, the minimum. The minimum, which means that basically you have the person come in and do you have to house them? Like, is that it? And there was an argument about how much do you have to do, because parents had sued and said, no, you have to educate my child. It says a free, appropriate public education, not a babysitting program, right? And by the way, the Supreme Court agreed with parents and threw out the Ninth Circuit decision and said, no, de minimis is not enough. Now, we don't have a new ruling telling us how much is enough. But we do have a ruling, it's the law of the land right now, de minimis, the minimum is not enough. And if you read IDEA, it says that your child is entitled to a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment in which your child has a floor of opportunity at which to access the curriculum. Now, that's a mouthful, right? But it means that appropriate means that they have to be in the least restrictive environment in which they have an opportunity to be successful with the curriculum, not with some other thing that you've made up. Now, we talk all the time, and we're going to have Bonnie on in a few minutes, and she talks about what least restrictive environment is. But for FAPE, you need to understand that this is the groundwork upon which you stand when you're arguing anything for your child in the field of education. And that appropriate is going to be the word that you're going to have the most contention over, because what you think is appropriate is not necessarily what the special education director of the school thinks, which is not necessarily what the principal thinks, which is not necessarily what the classroom aide thinks, right? And we need to get everybody on the same page for the child's individual education plan to figure out what appropriate is. At the end of your IEP, the school makes this offer to you, and it says, here is our offer of FAPE. This is what we're labeling is your free, appropriate public education, and it'll list services, what they think that they can and cannot do, what the setting is. Are they going to be in a mainstream classroom with a one-on-one aide, or are they going to be in a special day classroom with a 5-to-1 ratio? It will list all of those things on it, and those are the things that you will have discussions about, and sometimes even heated arguments about what is appropriate for the child. But just know that this is what your child is entitled to. When I was coming up through the ranks and FAPE was explained to me, I said, well, appropriate, that's a very interesting word. I looked appropriate up in as many dictionaries as I could find until I found one that it said it's effective. Right? And that's what I went in and argued, that appropriate meant effective. And anytime they would talk about something in the IEP meeting that was like, well, we do this, and I would say to them, is it effective? Do you have studies that show that that's effective? And I just hammered that thing over and over and over again. I just kept, like a woodpecker, just got the, is it effective? I will tell you that a lot of times parents make the mistake of asking for what's best. Because we all want what's best for our child, right? But it does not say anywhere best. It doesn't say that. And when you look up appropriate in the dictionary, it does not say best. It doesn't say that. And there is nothing from the Supreme Court that says that your child is entitled to the best. That's heartbreaking, right? But don't waste your time arguing it, because it's not there. You got to argue appropriate, and you got to argue what appropriate is. If you can find it in the dictionary where I did, I think it was Merriam-Webster that said it was effective, and then we want effective. And do you have proof that this is effective? Because I have proof that this is effective, and you go from there. But it's what your child is entitled to. Get it. Go after it. Have that. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, moving on. We always have a question of the day. And our question today, and you can be answering this on Facebook, you can answer on YouTube, you can chat it to us on our website, it's what's your favorite thing about back to school, and don't edit. Like if your favorite thing about going back to school is buying erasers, then that's your favorite thing about back to school. I love the school supplies. I'm just going to be honest. I cannot believe that it's this time of the year and I have not already gone and stocked up on school supplies. I think that I have so much I could open a store myself, but I do. I love when they have the sales and you can go in and you can buy, spiral notebooks for a penny if you buy 10 of them, I should be put in charge of buying the supplies for school because I enjoy that so much. But I also love the idea of new. And in fact, we might as well go right to our topic of the week because our topic of the week has everything to do with that. So, Traven, go ahead and reveal the topic of the week. Is it stuck? There it is. So our topic this week and what we're going to be talking about as we talk about back to school and some of the things with back to school is fresh starts. I love a fresh start. I was a teacher. I was a college professor teaching theater and acting, but I also, after 9/11, went back into the classroom. I had taught a little bit of English when in between undergrad and graduate, and I went back into the classroom in a junior high and high school setting to teach English because I needed to do that after 9/11. And did that for a couple of years before my son was born. But I love the fact that there are all these automatic fresh starts built into school. There's the beginning of the school year. That's a huge fresh start where everything can be different. That a student that has struggled could come in and things could be different, right? A teacher that has struggled, it's a fresh start. We're going to do things in a new way. It's like, January 1st, but it happens in September. Fresh start. But it's not the only fresh start that school has because every Monday is a fresh start. My goodness, when somebody shared that, they were like, no, every Monday is a new opportunity. If things aren't working in your classroom and you want to change the rules in your classroom, it's Monday. It's a fresh start. You can start over and try something new. You can, you teach something and then you open up a new chapter. That's great. We learned about Mesopotamia and now we're going to open the new chapter and we're going to learn about, the gardens of Babylonia. Or we read that book and now we're going to open up this new book. School is full of fresh starts. And I love fresh starts. I love the opportunity to be like, okay, what's working, what isn't working, how can we change things? So that's a little bit what I want to talk about today is how you can take advantage of a fresh start with our kids, how we start anew with them and implement new things with the coming of the new school year. So we're going to talk a little bit about that all week long. But first we're going to take a break and then we got to get Bonnie Yates on the phone because she probably thinks I gave up on her. So stick around, back with Bonnie Yates.
Hi everyone, welcome to Camp Ed 2019. And we are so excited because this is our first camp where we're in our new home. We have an incredible ballroom dance class going right now, so let's come and take a look.
Camp Ed at the Ed Asner Family Center is an inclusive arts camp featuring some of your favorite arts programs. We have a little over 3 weeks of camp left. We want you to come and join the excitement.
Hi, I'm Nava Pasquitz-Asner, the co-founder of the Ed Asner Family Center and the founder of Camp Ed. And I'd like to introduce you to Andrew Pascal, who is my new camp director for 2019.
We have a very action-packed last 3 weeks of camp. Next week we have Art Week, where we're going to do a color run. We're going to get really colorful. We're going to tie-dye some clothes. The week after that, we're doing Heroes Week, where we're going to talk about heroes as well as fictional superheroes. Our last week is Surf Week and Celebration Week. And Nava, can you tell us a little bit about Surf Week?
Yes, definitely. This is my favorite day of the entire summer. We're going to be working with the amazing surf therapists of A Walk on Water, and they're just going to give us a great day, beach, fun, just a really wonderful, safe day. Please come join us at Camp Ed 2019.
Yeah!
Woo-hoo!
To join us for a week or the next 3 weeks, call us at 818-302-0712. Once again, that's 818-302-0712. Camp Ed and the Ed Asner Family Center were created by our family for your family.
Well, I'll be hornswoggled.
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Can you have a life with autism? Absolutely not. Give it up right now. No, that's not true. I'm here to tell you, you can have a life with autism. I have a life with autism, and it's a good one. When you start on this journey, you don't know what's going to happen. You really have no idea. You're kind of in shell shock for the first couple years. It could be as long as 5 years until you realize, I do matter to people. When my son was first diagnosed, I remember thinking I would go anywhere and do anything for him. I didn't even think about it. I just came way at the bottom of the list. However, after a few years passed, I realized if I'm not important anymore, then that means no one's going to be here for him. So how do you have this life with autism? It's not easy. It's never going to be easy, but it can be done. It's really all about support. And support is a word you're going to hear a lot when you deal with the autism power structure. And that means schools, government agencies, social service agencies that can help you. There are things out there that you don't even know exist. So once you start connecting with other parents, you're going to kind of find this treasure chest full of things that only they can help you unlock. But once you get that support, it could be a babysitter coming to your home. It could be a therapist to take your child out and get him into the community. You can either leave the house, do your shopping, go to a farmer's market, do whatever you want to do. And it doesn't matter if it's really only about 5% of your time, as long as it's dedicated to you, that's going to help. It's all about your willingness to find support and your willingness to accept change and your willingness to kind of stick up for yourself, because you're battling for your child and you have to realize you guys are connected. There's a bond between you and your child that can never be broken. And if you're doing well, then your child's going to do well. So finding what you need To be happy, whole, and healthy as a person is a way that you can have a life with autism. And that's important too, because if you have a life with autism, you can also give your child a life too.
Welcome back. So I told a mistruth. I didn't mean to, but we don't have Bonnie Yates today. So we will keep you posted on that because there are other things. Bonnie gets called away, and so we don't have her today. And my apologies, her apologies, but it's all for good reasons. But that gives us a chance to talk a little bit more about autism in the classroom before we have Amy Gravino on. And I just want to remind you that Amy Gravino is the founder of A.S.C.O.T. I'm going to let her explain what that is, but it's all going to dovetail together. It's all going to make sense in a minute. So I mentioned before in our jargon of the day, we mentioned FAPE, free appropriate public education, and I mentioned that our topic this week is about fresh starts, and we're getting ready for back to school. This is the time of year when every time you walk into a store, it's the season, right? It's back to school. Now, some of you are going back to school sooner than others. There are schools that are going back in as early as 2 weeks here in Los Angeles, and other people across the country, it's sparsed out so that some people are going back the Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday after Labor Day. But so that means that for everybody, it's within the next month. Within the next 4 weeks, you're going back to school. So, right? No, maybe I guess it's like a total of 6 weeks if you're going back then. Okay, so, but how do we set ourselves up for success for that fresh start? And I mentioned the other day that one of the most important things is how we language it. And it doesn't matter where I am talking to what individual, what age, what learning capability, whenever, I meet a young person and we just get to talking about school and you say to them, what grade are you in? What grade are you going into? Whatever they say, I always have the same response. Oh my gosh, that's my favorite grade. You know why? Because, and then I come up with a reason why. But that is always my response because I feel that we have a responsibility as the adults in young people's lives to upsell school. There are great things that happen at school, but there are horrible things that happen at school, and school can be a ginormous drag, right? But there are good things that can happen at school, and if we're not pushing those things, then we're really doing a disservice to these young people, because you know what the truth is, they have to go no matter what. That in our society, we say that kids have to go to school unless there's a medical reason why they can't, and you have to prove it. They won't just take your word for it. They have to go to school. There's a responsibility on our government to make sure that all children are educated. So if we know that they have to go, then let's make it as fabulous, safe, fun, and educationally rewarding as we possibly can. So I think the first part of that is by saying that it can be that. I hate it when I'm around an adult who goes, oh, you must be dreading going back to school. Usually I say to that person, can I speak to you over there? And then I go, don't do that. Don't put that on them. Let's talk about all the things. Let's put the ideas in their head about the things that can be good. And for different people, that's different things. But, just the other day I was talking to my son about the fact that, he's going to be a junior in high school. And I was like, wow, you've gotten all of your gen ed requirements out of the way. So now you get to take more electives this year. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah. What are you talking about? Like, this is the keys to the kingdom because these are the classes. And last year he took drama. And I said, when it came time to study for your finals, were you at all worried about studying for your drama final? And he was like, oh no, because I knew everything forwards, backward, and sideways. And I said, that's what you want your electives to be. That it's so exciting to you that you don't have to study because you've already done the work and it's in your body. And I was saying to him, get excited. Make sure you get the right electives. Like this is how you're going to be spending your time. So pick the things that you want to be doing that are going to help you to do the things that you want to do. And then he was like, oh yeah, well, what would I like to be doing? Oh, that's a different way of looking at it, right? Other than, oh, they'll just give me some electives. No, right? Because our theme for last week was making it fun. And if education is not fun, how far do you think we legislate that they have to go up through 12th grade, right? How far do you think they're going to go after that if there was no element of that was fun? I used to lament teaching high school kids because there were kids who just, oh man, they struggled with the format of high school. And I loved saying to them, you know, I know that this aspect of this is hard, but you're confusing that with education. When you go to college and you're taking classes that you chose on a schedule that you want, so you don't have to take the 8 o'clock in the class morning in the class in the morning if you don't want to. You can have all your classes start at noon if that's what works better for you. A lot of kids just do better when they get to college. But what if we could do that for all of our kids, especially for our kids on the autism spectrum? What if we could customize some things to be extra fun? What if we could put the emphasis on things, and it could be that we actually make the thing fun, or we pair something that's really rewarding with it. So first thing I'm going to throw out to you today to be thinking about, whatever day that school starts, make sure that you anchor in that things are fun that morning. Start a tradition. Some people have their kids hold up a thing saying this is the first day of what grade. I'm a big believer in the new shoes and the new outfit head to toe, because there's something about that that says I'm special. And we want all of our kids to feel special, right? So, and you may do it in kindergarten and they're like, this does not make me feel special, right? But if you keep doing it, eventually it'll be like, this is my back to school outfit and I feel special, right? You'll get there. But then, make a big deal, take pictures, tell them how proud you are of them, pack something special in the lunch, and then when you pick them up from school, start a tradition that you do something fun to celebrate the first day of school. Like if there's the Dave & Buster's near you, that you go and, or the Chuck E. Cheese, or the whatever, that you go and you do something, and that may not be reinforcing to your kid, but what is reinforcing? I love in Toy Story that the mom, it's not the first day of school, but she's taking the kids to the pizza port, right? That's the kind of place you want to take your kids to, is that kind of place that's that kind of fun to them. But for kids who are sound sensitive, maybe that's going to look a little bit different. But ask the child, ask now, where's the most fun place for you? What's the biggest treat for you? It's got to be within reason, because you can't drive all the way to Disneyland unless you live next door to it, right? But find out what that is and then build that up. And so on Tuesday, it's your first day of school and you're going to wear your new outfit and it's going to be so much fun and you're going to love your new teacher. And then Tuesday night, we're going there for dinner. We're going to do that and it's going to be woohoo. And what you're doing is pairing reinforcement with school and starting school. You're teaching them that, when I start new things, I get good attention and I get the good things in life. And you want to be pairing that. Don't make the mistake of pairing negative with school. Nobody needs that. If you have baggage from school, I'm asking you to put it up on a hook and don't put that on your child, right? Let's make them excited. And even for our kids that language is a challenge, a lot of our kids that don't have expressive language have good receptive language and can hear, and we need to remember to keep languaging things and narrating things and talking about, wow, it's going to be so great. You're going to be in second grade. Second grade is awesome, right? Sell it. I love to see kids who come in and they're so proud of the fact that they're in that grade. Don't be afraid if your child doesn't get it the first time that you're doing it. Keep doing it. Because eventually they will start to get it. If you know that your child doesn't really understand receptive language, get a book, go to the library or go to a bookstore and get a book about starting that grade. They have one for every single grade. But you can also make a story for them and have them be the character in it. By the way, you can send away for these books with your child's name in them, but you can do it yourself with some, regular printer paper and a couple of crayons and stick figures. And, you write the words in and say, Rebecca goes to first grade. And she gets there and she hangs up her backpack and her teacher tells her good job, right? And then you turn the page. Become a child author just for your child. But and then you're saying the words, but then there's pictures there for the child as well. There's even software now that you can animate a cartoon with an avatar with them in it, and you can do it fairly quickly. And they're relatively inexpensive to do. So however is best for you, set your child up for that kind of success. Either talking to them about it or presenting a cartoon or a booklet, whatever, but give them the idea that this is going to be fun. You'll have plenty of days to deal with the aspects of it that are not fun. Anyway, so that's my Autism in the Classroom tip for this week. We're going to have more as we go back to school. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Amy Gravino is going to talk about when school is over, till 12th grade and going to college for folks that are on the autism spectrum and the particular expertise that she has. So stick with us.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with Talk of Facts. Questions, real life questions and answers for the autism journey. Oh, are you ready for this one? Talk to me about puberty. So what I would recommend is first and foremost is the kids that have done the therapeutics, the medical, and the dietary allergen removal interventions tend to have an easier time at puberty. Seizures are really common for children on the spectrum, more than neurotypical populations, and they're especially most common right at or about puberty time. So it's extremely important, even if you have a 10-year-old, that you've already done an EEG, that you consider before they go through puberty to get a second EEG done. Just because you have one clean EEG with no abnormal brain activity or seizure activity, you need to do another one prior to puberty. That's one of the most common calls we get with teens on the spectrum, is they are often experiencing a seizure for what their family thinks is the first time. And the third thing is you're gonna have a teenager, so you're really gonna have to kick it up a notch on those life skills, social skills, and getting your kid ready to be that teenager they need to be. So if you're doing that baby thing, and I know you are, where you're maybe making their lunches or helping them with laundry, we need to start bouncing some chores over to those kids. And we also need to increase social environments where they can be successful. So think about it. We've got 3 really important things that we need to look at. Puberty is a very serious issue, and we take it very seriously. So make sure you have all of your therapeutics, medical, and dietary interventions in place. Consider to do another 24-hour EEG with your physician prior to puberty. And the third most important thing, get ready to raise the bar. Your job is to really get them ready for life. And I know you can do it.
Hard times lead to good choices. Many times you're going to find out that change is coming and it's not something that you like to see. Things sometimes just don't work. Sometimes you have to put your child in a new school. Sometimes you have to put them in a different classroom. Often you'll see this with perhaps special education versus regular education, or everyone's favorite, puberty. All bets are off then. However, these things happen when they need to happen. So making that hard choice is super, super scary. But when you open those doors to look at things that maybe you've never dreamed you would have to look at, you're going to find help that you never expected. There are a lot of people out there dealing with the same things that you are dealing with, and there is a level of help that you never even knew existed. So don't be afraid when it's time to look at the scary problems that you're having. When those things come up, when the aggression increases, when things are falling apart at home, when you're getting the calls from the schools, don't be afraid. Reach out, Find out what you need to do. You might need to look at new schools, new housing. You might need to access new levels of service. But I am telling you, you're going to see amazing things. There are children that, as they grow, do things with the help of others, very specialized support, that you never thought they could do. So once you do that and you meet the child where he or she is and you give them what they need, everybody can do better, and you're going to see amazing progress.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so excited. I was just saying, this is Amy Gravino, and we're welcoming her back to the show. And I said, Amy, how long has it been since you'd last been on the show? And what did you tell me, Amy?
I said it's been 7 years since I was last on Autism Live, 2012.
And I nearly fell over. I was like, 7 years? But listen, this is how great Amy is, that it's been 7 years and I remembered her like it was a week ago. And how remiss am I that we haven't had her on in 7 years. Amy is amazing, and we're so excited that she's here with us today. And Amy, I'm going to let you tell them a lot about yourself. But one of the things that I tease them with is that you are the founder of something called A.S.C.O.T. Do you want to start by telling us what A.S.C.O.T stands for and what you do at A.S.C.O.T?
Absolutely. So A.S.C.O.T stands for Autism Spectrum Coaching and Other Techniques. I originally started it in 2010 when I obtained my college coaching certification for students on the spectrum from Bank Street College and Dr. Linda Geller in New York City. Since then, it has expanded because what's kind of taken over everything that I do is I give presentations about autism and sexuality for a living. And so what's happened is that I've had people contact me also who are not yet in college or who are thinking about going to college, or younger people on the spectrum, teenagers who are looking for mentors. So I've added this kind of mentoring facet to A.S.C.O.T, where I, as an older person, well, not older, but, not teenager, on the spectrum, I will speak to people who need some advice, need somebody to talk to who's been there, who knows what it's like. And so that mentoring component has really been a wonderful thing. And the consulting component also is another thing that has continued on in addition to the coaching. And the consulting is where I meet with parents, with families, with individuals, school districts, anyone who's looking for someone who is an autism advocate, looking for someone to give input into programs, services, whatever it may be. I do film consulting as well. If somebody needs somebody to come consult on a motion picture or a TV show with a character on the spectrum. So A.S.C.O.T has really, changed quite a bit since I started in 2010. But I'm glad it's got all these other components to it.
It's so wonderful, all the different things that you do, and I sort of want to talk about all of them. But let's start with, how would somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to use your services?
Well, so when somebody wants to get a hold of me to use my services, they can visit my website at amygravino.com. There's more information there about A.S.C.O.T, about my public speaking. And you can also send me an email at amy@amygravino.com. That's the best way to reach me.
I love that in your personal bio that you include a sentence in it that says, when I was younger, my inexplicably large head kept me from ever wearing a hat. Now I wear many of them. And I love that's the perfect description of what you do. You do wear a lot of different hats, and I love that you put it in that way. You clearly have a wonderful sense of humor. Okay, I don't know which thing to talk about first, but let's go for the meaty, juicy part, which, there are very few people that are talking about the dating and sexuality part of the equation. And of course, there is that part of the equation that every single person, we know Maslow's theory that, sex is a part of life, folks. And yet it seems like everybody's a little squeamish when we get to talking about sex and dating and sexual relationships with people that are on the autism spectrum. It kind of mystifies me. Everybody gets a little, so I love that you are speaking about this. In fact, you've got a new book that's coming out, right?
Yes, I have a book that I've been working on. It's called The Naughty Audie, and it's a memoir of my experiences as a woman on the spectrum with dating and sexuality. So it's not a how-to book. It's not a guide. It's an actual memoir of my own experiences. I'm trying to find a publisher for it, really hopeful. I think, and the great thing about it is, because when I give these presentations, people will come up to me and they'll say, I'm not autistic, I'm not on the spectrum, but I totally relate to that. I went through something just like that. So people, the reason I think why we have such a stigma around talking about sexuality and autism is there's this idea of it being so different, that this is something, how can somebody who has this disability, what kind of interest do they have in sex, and how do we talk to somebody with these challenges about this? And the truth of the matter is that, yes, there are differences, but there are a lot of similarities as well. There are a lot more things that make us alike than make us different when it comes to some of these experiences. And so I'm hopeful that through my speaking and through the book, I'll be able to show people that and show that these are important conversations that we really need to have. And so that's been kind of just the biggest overarching thing since I started doing all this. I've been professionally speaking for 13 years. I started doing the sexuality presentations in 2012, and it's just blown up since then so much because people are suddenly realizing, oh, my child on the spectrum is going to become a teenager on the spectrum, and then an adult, and
right.
oh crap, I didn't prepare for that.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing to me that everybody. I mean, I feel like in a lot of our world that the people's brains have been expanded a little bit to look at these things in a different way, and yet we're really behind on the spectrum. So I think publishers need to get on it and publish your book, and I think you just need to market it to them the right way, Amy. You need to tell them that it's sex and the city on the spectrum. Because
you described it, yes. And I actually just was interviewed by the Washington Post a few days ago for a podcast that they're doing. They're talking about autism and sexuality and relationships and depictions in the media. So I was able to talk about that a little bit with this reporter. So I think it's really starting to gain more notice. One of the things that came up in the podcast is this book called The Kiss Quotient, which is written by a young woman who is on the spectrum, but it's a fiction book. It's fictionalized, and mine is very much nonfiction, which I think is why it's been so hard for me to write, because when I think about these things, I don't just remember them. I relive everything I felt when these things happened, and some of them are extraordinarily painful, and some of them are hilarious, but it's a different kind of book, and I think publishers do need to get on it. We have obviously publishers who cater more to the autism market, and that's great. I think that's wonderful that those publishers exist, but I would like to see mainstream publishers really get on that bandwagon.
Yeah. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit to talking about A.S.C.O.T and the consulting, and so who would be your ideal client for parents that are watching right now and that are like facing that moment when their kid is going to go away to college? Who's like the perfect client for you, and what can you do for them that parents will go, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I needed?
Well, when I think about who a perfect client would be for me, it's hard to say because everyone's experience is going to be different. Everyone, if they're looking at going to college, what they want out of that is going to be different. And it's going to be different not only from other autistic would-be college students, it's going to be different from what their parents are thinking as well. So I find this when I meet with a client that what their parents think is the most pressing issue isn't always what the client thinks is the most pressing issue.
Well, so for instance, and excuse me 1 second, let me clarify.
Okay.
So is it better, I can think of one friend that her son has said to her, I want to go to college. And mom is like, I don't think it's possible. And I'm telling her, oh, no, you're completely barking up the wrong tree here. You absolutely should, he wants to go to college, you should send him to college. So is that a client that you could take and help?
I could. I mean, again, it would be, if that client wants the help, if they feel that they, you know what I mean? Because everybody also is at that different point in their journey where they feel like they can ask for help. Because when I went to college, there was some services available to me. There was the academic support office, although it wasn't specifically geared to students on the spectrum. I felt ashamed to ask for help. I felt like this makes me weak that I need help. I mean, here I am. I fought so hard. I'm in college. I shouldn't need help. And what I say to clients and I say to people is that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is a sign of strength. Yeah. Because you're acknowledging that you are struggling with something. You're recognizing that in yourself. You have a level of self-awareness and you're doing something about it. So, but not everybody arrives at that point at the same time.
Okay. So pretty much anybody who has a child who's on the spectrum that's thinking of going to college or going to college, they can certainly reach out to you and say, here are our circumstances. Can you help us with X, Y, or Z? That maybe it's help finding the college, maybe it's help finding what the services are that are available at the college that they've been accepted to. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Somewhat, yes. I think what I do is more geared to students who are already enrolled in college.
Okay.
Like I said, that was what kind of started off, but then I added the component, I added the consulting part, mentoring part to students who are not yet in college or who are, maybe dropped out or looking at re-enrolling. So that would be kind of a different element as opposed to someone who is already in college. I have kind of an outline of the services I provide in my brochure, and those are more geared toward folks who are currently enrolled in college. But like I say, I also offer consulting to individuals who are not presently in college.
Okay, so wonderful. And again, where people can reach you to contract you for services for A.S.C.O.T, where can they go?
They can go to my website, amygravino.com. I'm also on social media, Twitter, Facebook. I have a fan page, Instagram. But the best way to reach me is email at amy@amygravino.com.
Okay. And then I wanted to take, because you have such a varied background. You have an MA in Applied Behavior Analysis from Caldwell University from 2010. And Amy, I can't let it go because it's so often that people will write in and say to us that, well, let's be honest, there's a lot of folks that are self-advocates who are not big fans of ABA, right? And people will write into us and say, if ABA is so great, why don't we see more adults on the spectrum talking about that? And I always say, because they're busy out living their lives. They don't want to sit and convince you of anything. But so as a person who refers to herself as a self-advocate, you have a master's in ABA. Are you a fan of ABA or not a fan of ABA?
Oh, well, that's a complicated question. I am a fan of the science of ABA. I think that the idea behind it is actually a reasonable one, which is just helping people make changes to their behavior that they're choosing to make. That's kind of the basic concept. It's then, however, how it's applied in practice that can sometimes be problematic. And
Yes.
So when I was working on my degree, I did feel a little bit intimidated, like when I would go to the conferences and because they're so big and there's so many people, and what I came to realize as time went on is that I'm not there to be like everybody else is there. I'm there to be unique, to provide my voice, to provide that autistic voice and perspective, and let them know like this is what is not okay. This is what can be done better. Because it is very easy to get caught in that bubble. We all have that. It's the reason why I'll never live in Southern California, because it's a bubble and the weather is all the same.
We like that bubble, Amy. That bubble makes me happy.
I know when I go there, it's like I forget the rest of the world exists. After a day or two, and that is what I find happens sometimes in the field of ABA, is that when you are in there, you kind of forget that there's the rest of that there, and so many times I hear it said the goal is the dissemination of ABA, the dissemination of the science. But that's not happening if you're not getting out there and communicating with people, the positives of this, and that you're listening to people's concerns and that you're trying to make these changes. And I actually do know other autistic adults who are working in the field. There's a Facebook group devoted to them, but obviously they're very reluctant to speak aloud because there's such a strong anti-ABA sentiment among self-advocates.
Yeah.
And many feel just completely exhausted trying to not necessarily defend ABA, but explain why we chose to get involved.
Yeah.
And I will say to people, okay, if I'm not there saying all this stuff, then they're not hearing it. So would you rather I not be at these conferences? Would you rather I not be, talking to these BCBAs and telling them, what they're doing wrong? Because then they're not going to hear it. So somebody has to be out there actually doing it and not just talking about it online and airing grievances, which is fair, and everybody has the right to air their feelings, and I'm not trying to squash anyone's voice, but action has to be the next logical step. So that's why I'm trying to get out there and make changes from within rather than from just without.
I really appreciate that. Sometime I'd love to have you come back on the show and do a whole segment on what BCBAs are doing wrong. That would make me happy. Because I love some BCBAs, and I come from a point of view where my son is going to be able to go to college because he had good quality ABA, and my son has a wonderful sense of himself. And I hear people talk about horror stories with ABA that are not my experience, right? But it has become my stance that quality ABA and the rights of the individual and the dignity of the individual and, you know, all of those things, because I hear these horrible horror stories. So I love an opportunity now. I get to speak sometimes as a parent to BCBAs about the things that are important to me and the things that are important to me having a child that's about to be an adult. And to me, that's wonderful, because I think I feel like they are excited to hear that point of view, and they want to hear, how can I be doing what I'm doing better? Most of them, maybe not everybody, but most of them.
I mean, I would say that the number one thing, and I wish that BCBAs would realize this, is that what you learn in graduate school, in your PhD, or in your clinical settings, whatever you're learning there from your professors, may not necessarily be what the real world is going to be like. And you will get into situations outside of your classroom, outside of your training areas, where you may have to chuck your little rule book out the window, because the real world is a very vastly different place from the clinic and from what you learn in textbooks.
Amen to that.
You know, people need to be adaptable.
That's absolutely, of course. I also see here that you are on the Self-Advocate Advisory Board for the Daniel Jordan Fiddle Foundation, which I love that organization. I love Linda Waller. What a wonderful thing. They do great work. And that you're also on the Awareness Committee for Autism Speaks. So all these different hats that you wear.
I'm actually not anymore. They dissolved that committee.
Which committee? For the Daniel J. Fiddle Foundation?
No, for Autism Speaks.
Oh, okay, for Autism Speaks.
But I am on the board of directors of Special Listerna USA, and I'm on the board of directors of the Golden Door International Film Festival of Jersey City.
We love both of those things. We love both of those.
Yes, she can, which actually does job training for young women on the autism spectrum.
Well, and have you had an opportunity, we covered on the show not too long ago, the social club that's in New York City that's just for women on the spectrum. Have you been? I'm sorry, have you been?
Felicity House?
Yeah, have you had an opportunity to go?
I've been a member since the beginning, actually.
Well, look at that. Well, I love that. We were so excited to hear about that. I especially I feel always for the young women and for the families of the young women, because for so long, so many young women were misdiagnosed, not diagnosed, overlooked. There weren't programs for young women, and I'm glad that people like you are leading the charge, Amy, to make sure that young women are heard, that they have role models, and that we can move this forward for those young ladies. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We should say, too, that you've got a bunch of different publications, but the best thing to do would be to go to your Facebook page, your Instagram page, and your website, correct?
Yes. If you go to facebook.com/Amy Gravino fan page, that's my fan page, which I try to update with all the latest information and news. I have been published in a lot of different outlets, so it's hard to kind of collect all those. I'm trying to get them in, order. But yes, but all the information, and there's videos also of my presentations on my website. And as I said, I was just interviewed for that podcast, and I've actually just been invited to be the closing keynote speaker at the annual conference of the Kennedy Krieger Institute in Baltimore.
Wow.
So I'll be doing that in October.
Very cool. Well, Amy, we're impressed as always. 7 years later, even more impressed. But come back and see us again sooner. Let's not wait 7 years next time.
Yes, that's much too long. And maybe if I get out to Southern California there, we can see each other in person.
That'd be awesome. That would be really wonderful. We thank you for being with us, and please stay in touch.
I will.
I can't wait to read The Naughty Audie.
Thank you.
And better, I can't wait for the film. That's a film. That's a film.
Or the one-woman show. I'm going to do a one-woman show.
Fabulous. Well, bring it out to LA. I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So that was the wonderful Amy Gravino. And didn't I promise that she would be great? Absolutely fabulous. I understand that we are out of time, but we're going to be back tomorrow with a best of show. And then we are back on Wednesday. And guess who we have back in the studio on Wednesday? Yes, that's right. Dr. Doreen Grampuchet is back in the studio with us on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, do you know who we have on the show on Thursday? We have Joanne Lara and Susan Osborne from Autism Works Now and Autism Movement Therapy. It's like I've had a brain bubble. But so that will be really cool. And then I don't remember who we have on Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy next week. I can't remember. But it'll be great, I promise you. So join us with all of that. We'll see you back tomorrow for Best of. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.